Here's a more detailed version of Part 1 in simple English, written in third-person style. The massive Alliance ship hovered above Earth, its sleek metal surface gleaming in the sunlight. Commander Tae-ho Kim stood tall on the bridge, his dark uniform spotless as he watched the small Earth shuttle approach. His eyes, always alert, scanned every detail of the primitive vessel. "Preparing for Earth representatives to board, Commander," reported his assistant. Tae-ho nodded. "High Admiral Nari expects a full report on human military capabilities by tomorrow." The Alliance had fought the Vraxian Dominion for over 300 years. The war stretched across countless star systems, with millions dead on both sides. Neither force could gain a lasting advantage. Then scouts discovered Earth, a planet with beings who constantly fought each other, yet somehow kept surviving. When the Earth delegates entered the meeting room, Tae-ho studied them carefully. They were smaller than most Alliance species, with only 2 arms and soft skin. They looked weak, but their eyes showed something different, a hardness that came from countless wars. "Welcome to the Alliance diplomatic vessel, Harmony," Tae-ho said, bowing slightly. The humans seemed amazed by the ship's size and technology. They asked many questions about the star maps and weapons systems. One human, a military officer named General Lee, asked particularly sharp questions about Vraxian battle tactics. Later that night, Tae-ho wrote his report for High Admiral Nari. "Humans appear physically weaker than most Alliance species. Their technology is at least 200 years behind ours. However, their combat records show remarkable adaptability. They have fought thousands of wars among themselves, using every possible terrain and condition. They adapt quickly to new weapons and tactics," he paused before adding. "Most interesting is their capacity for both extreme violence and deep compassion. They can switch between these states faster than any species I've observed. This might be valuable against the Vraxians." High Admiral Nari, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms, read the report with growing interest. "Bring me more information about their wars," she ordered. For weeks, Alliance analysts studied human history. They watched recordings of Earth's battles, from ancient sword fights to modern special forces operations. The Alliance military leaders became convinced that humans had something valuable to offer, a different way of thinking about war. Earth's governments argued among themselves about joining the galactic conflict. Some wanted the advanced technology the Alliance offered. Others feared becoming pawns in an alien war. But when the Alliance showed them images of Vraxian torture camps and destroyed worlds, most agreed that the threat must be stopped. 3 months after first contact, Earth's United Nations signed the conscription treaty. Humans would fight for the Alliance in exchange for technology, protection, and eventual full membership in the galactic community. Captain Yoonji Park was selected to lead the 1st Human Battalion. At 35 years old, she had already fought in 3 conflicts on Earth and was known for her creative battle strategies. Her dark hair was cut short, and a scar ran across her left cheek from an old battle. She stood straight as a board when presented to the Alliance Military Council, 15 alien leaders who would decide how humans would be used in the war. The Council chamber was enormous, with high ceilings and strange plants from different worlds. The air smelled of unfamiliar spices and chemicals. Grand General Suni, a mantis-like being with compound eyes and clicking mandibles, leaned toward her. Aiden whispered, "These humans look fragile. Their bones break easily, and they have no natural armor." Though Yoonji couldn't understand the alien language, she recognized the dismissive tone. She had heard it before. Officers who thought she was too small or too female to fight effectively. She squared her shoulders and kept her face neutral. "Captain Park," said High Admiral Nari through a translator, "your soldiers will be equipped with Alliance armor and weapons. You will follow Alliance battle doctrines without question. Is this understood?" "Yes, Admiral," Yoonji replied, though she had serious doubts about the rigid battle plans she had reviewed. On Earth, she would have adapted her strategy to the situation, not followed a rulebook. Training began immediately. Human soldiers struggled with the new technology, but learned quickly. The Alliance officers were surprised by human endurance, the ability to keep fighting despite pain, hunger, and exhaustion. Commander Tae-ho watched the training sessions with growing interest. Unlike other Alliance officers, He saw potential in these strange new allies. One day he observed Yunji's unit running drills with heavy Alliance battle gear. "Your soldiers train harder than necessary," he commented. Yunji wiped sweat from her brow. "We train for the worst conditions, so we're ready for anything." Teho nodded thoughtfully. "The Vraxians will not expect such determination from beings your size." 1 month later, 5,000 human soldiers boarded Alliance transport ships, bound for the front lines. As Captain Yunji led her battalion onto the massive vessel, she caught Commander Taiho watching her. "Remember," he said quietly, "Alliance battle doctrine was written by beings who have never lost their homeworld. Humans have a different perspective. When the time comes, trust your instincts." Yunji gave him a sharp nod before marching forward. The Alliance would soon learn what humans were capable of, and why some lessons are learned the hard way. 6 months had passed since the first human battalion joined the Alliance forces. Captain Yunji Park stood in the command center of Proxima Station, studying the holographic display with growing concern. The massive space station orbited a gas giant in a strategic system, serving as a crucial supply hub for Alliance operations. Red dots representing Vraxian ships surrounded the blue triangle of Proxima Station. They were trapped. "Casualties report." "Lieutenant," Yunji said, her voice steady despite the grim situation. Lieutenant Daehyun Lee looked up from his console, his young face showing signs of exhaustion. Dark circles underlined his eyes, and a fresh bandage covered a burn on his right cheek. 37 dead, 53 wounded in the last assault. The medical bay is overwhelmed. Yunji nodded silently. In their 6 months of combat, human forces had suffered heavy losses. The rigid Alliance battle protocols, effective against traditional Vraxian tactics, failed to adapt when the enemy changed their approach. The Alliance commanders insisted on following their 1,000-year-old battle doctrines, regardless of the situation. "Alliance reinforcements?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Negative, Captain. Communications are being jammed, and the nearest support fleet is 3 days away." Daehyun moved to stand beside her at the holographic display. "The Vraxians are preparing for another assault. Their boarding craft are moving into position." Around them, the remaining human soldiers prepared defenses. Unlike the other Alliance species, humans had quickly learned to modify their equipment. Some had attached makeshift bayonets to their energy rifles, while others had repurposed maintenance tools as backup weapons. The Alliance officers had disapproved of these modifications, but Yunji had quietly allowed them. "Standard protocols say we should concentrate our forces at these 3 junctions," Daehyun said, pointing to the main entrances to the command sector. "Form defensive lines and hold until reinforcements arrive." Yunji studied the hologram, her mind racing through scenarios. "And if we follow those protocols, we'll be dead before reinforcements arrive," Daehyun said bluntly. "The Vraxians have adapted to Alliance defensive formations. They know exactly where we'll be." A distant explosion shook the station, causing the lights to flicker. The Vraxians were beginning their assault. Yunji made her decision. "Then we abandoned protocol." She activated her comm unit, connecting to all human soldiers on the station. "All units, this is Captain Park. Implement Contingency Typhoon. I repeat, Contingency Typhoon is now active." Before leaving Earth, Yunji had created several contingency plans, unofficial strategies that deviated from Alliance doctrine. Typhoon was specifically designed for situations when they were outnumbered and surrounded. It wasn't just a defensive strategy. It was an offensive one disguised as a retreat. The Alliance officers monitoring the human communications didn't understand the reference, but they noticed immediately when human soldiers began abandoning their assigned positions. "Captain Park, what are your forces doing?" demanded Senior Commander Vallo through the comm. "Return to your defensive positions immediately." Yunji ignored the command. Instead, she watched as her soldiers split into small mobile teams. Each team carried specific equipment taken from various parts of the station. Daehyun, status of Team Phantom. "In position near the environmental controls, Captain." "Team Shadow?" "Moving through maintenance tunnels to the reactor control room." "Team Ghost?" "Ready at the external airlocks." The Vraxian boarding craft attached to the station's hull, cutting through the outer doors. Within minutes, Vraxian soldiers, tall, Reptilian beings with natural armor and forearms poured into the station. They moved confidently toward the locations where Alliance forces typically established defensive positions, but the humans weren't there. In the station's secondary command center, Yunji activated the main viewer. The screen showed multiple camera feeds from throughout the station. Alliance commanders from nearby ships had also patched into these feeds, watching in growing confusion as human tactics unfolded. Team Phantom reached the environmental controls and began adjusting settings, not to shut them down, but to create specific conditions. The gravity increased in certain sections, decreased in others. The lighting systems began to strobe in patterns designed to disorient Vraxian vision. The station's internal communication system suddenly blasted sounds at frequencies particularly painful to Vraxian hearing. Team Shadow reached the reactor control room and began executing a complex sequence of power fluctuations. Throughout the station, doors opened and closed randomly, separating Vraxian units from each other. Most shocking to the Alliance observers was Team Ghost's action. Using EVA suits, they exited the station through maintenance airlocks. Moving along the hull, they reached the attached Vraxian vessels. Instead of trying to destroy the ships, they began rewiring control systems and communication arrays. "What are they doing?" asked Commander Vallo, his voice a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Meanwhile, the main human force had split into small, hunter-killer teams, striking at confused Vraxian units before disappearing into maintenance shafts and service corridors. They used the station itself as a weapon, setting traps and ambushes that no Alliance tactical manual had ever described. 3 hours into the battle, something extraordinary happened. The Vraxian forces began fighting each other. Team Ghost had successfully hacked into their communication systems, sending false orders and creating confusion about which humans were actually disguised Vraxians. 6 hours after the assault began, Captain Yunji Park stood on the bridge of a captured Vraxian command ship, surrounded by her tired but triumphant soldiers. Not only had they defended Proxima Station, but they had captured 3 enemy vessels with minimal additional casualties. On the main communication screen, the faces of Alliance commanders showed various expressions of shock, disbelief, and in some cases concern. "Captain Park," Grand General Suni said finally, her mandibles clicking nervously. "What exactly did we just witness?" Yunji smiled slightly. "We call it asymmetric warfare, General. Sometimes, when you can't win by the rules, you have to change the game entirely." News of the human victory at Proxima Station spread quickly through Alliance space. The story grew with each telling, how a single human battalion had captured 3 Vraxian command ships using tactics no one had seen before. Some Alliance species were impressed. Others were disturbed. At Alliance High Command headquarters on Celestial Prime, the Military Council met to discuss the implications. The circular chamber was filled with representatives from 37 species, each with their own opinions about the humans. "Their methods are unconventional but effective," argued Admiral Nari, who had supported human recruitment from the beginning. "The Vraxians have adapted to our traditional tactics over centuries. We need something new." "But their approach lacks honor," countered General Trell, a tall warrior with gleaming scales. "They use trickery and deception instead of facing the enemy directly." "And yet they won," Admiral Nari replied simply. "While following our honored traditions has cost us thousands of ships and millions of lives." After 3 days of heated debate, the Council reached a decision. Captain Yunji Park would be promoted and tasked with training special mixed-species units in human combat techniques. The program would be called Adaptive Response Initiative. 2 weeks later, Yunji stood before her first class of trainees, 50, elite soldiers from 12 different Alliance species. They gathered in a large training room aboard the Alliance carrier Invincible. Some had volunteered out of curiosity, others had been ordered to attend. "Welcome to Adaptive Response Training," Yunji began. "What you learn here will contradict much of your previous military education." A tall, 4-armed soldier with blue skin raised one of his hands. "Why should we abandon proven Alliance tactics for human methods that have only been tested once?" Yunji nodded at the question. Because the enemy knows our proven tactics. They've studied them for 300 years. She activated a holographic display showing Alliance battle formations. Tell me, what happens when you follow Formation Delta against a Vraxian pincer attack? We strengthen the center and push through their weakest point, the blue soldier answered confidently. And how many times has that worked in the last 50 years? The soldier hesitated. The success rate has decreased. It's dropped to 8%, Yunji stated flatly. Because the Vraxians expect it. Humans don't just follow orders, we adapt. That's what you'll learn here. From a shadowed corner of the room, Commander Taeho Kim watched with growing concern. He had supported bringing humans into the Alliance, but their methods were more radical than he had anticipated. As Yunji began teaching concepts like deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare, he saw confusion and discomfort on many alien faces. The training was intense. Yunji taught them to think differently about warfare. Instead of following strict formations, they learned to create confusion. Instead of direct attacks, they practiced ambushes. Most controversial was her lesson on fear. Every species fears something, she explained. Even the Vraxians find what they fear and use it against them. But the battle manuals say Vraxians do not experience fear, objected a small furry trainee. All living things fear death, Yunji replied. The difference is what they're willing to die for, and what they're afraid to die without accomplishing. After 6 weeks of training, Yunji's first mixed unit was ready for deployment. Commander Taeho submitted his evaluation to High Command. The human training methods produce unpredictable but highly effective combat units. However, I have concerns about their long-term impact on Alliance military culture. His concerns were set aside when the Vraxian Third Fleet attacked Cygnus Colony, a peaceful farming settlement with minimal defenses. The colony's distress call reached the Invincible while Yunji's unit was still aboard. They were the closest Alliance force. We're outnumbered 3-1, reported the ship's captain. Numbers don't win battles, Yunji replied. Position, timing, and psychology do. Rather than engaging the Vraxian fleet directly, Yunji's unit deployed to the colony's surface in small, fast ships. The Vraxians, expecting the colony to be defended from space, were surprised when attacks came from the ground. Human-trained teams targeted the Vraxian command centers first, using the colony's agricultural equipment as improvised weapons. They flooded landing areas with chemicals that reacted with Vraxian skin. They broadcast fake distress calls that sent Vraxian ships to the wrong locations. Most effective was their use of the colony's agricultural drones. Reprogrammed by human technicians, hundreds of small farming robots attached themselves to Vraxian ships. They didn't cause damage. They just randomly interfered with sensors and communications, creating chaos in the Vraxian fleet. 3 days after the battle began, the Vraxians retreated. They had lost 27 ships while the Alliance had lost only 3. The colony suffered minimal damage. A captured Vraxian officer was brought before Yunji for questioning. The reptilian being looked at her with 4 angry eyes. Your tactics violate all established combat protocols, the Vraxian hissed. You retreat when we expect advance, attack when we expect defense. It's as if you can read our tactical doctrines. Yunji smiled slightly. We can't read your doctrines, we just understand fear. Vraxians do not fear humans, the officer insisted. No, Yunji agreed, but you fear failure. You fear looking weak in front of your superiors. You fear losing status. So when we don't behave as expected, you become afraid of making the wrong decision. That hesitation gives us the advantage. Later that night, Commander Taeho found Yunji in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The High Command is impressed with your victory, he said, joining her at the viewport. They're expanding your training program to include 5,000 troops. Yunji nodded. And what about you, Commander? Are you impressed? I'm concerned, he admitted. Human methods are effective, yes, but there's something unsettling about them. Your approaches lack predictability. War isn't predictable, Yunji replied. That's what the Alliance never understood. You've been fighting the same way for so long that you forgot how to change. Perhaps, Taeho said quietly, but I wonder if some changes come at too high a price. the Alliance High Command. Gathered in a secure meeting room deep within their headquarters, maps and holographic displays filled the space, showing a distant planet with a large red marker. Admiral Nari stood at the center, her blue face serious as she addressed the military leaders. Intelligence has confirmed the Vraxians are developing a planet-killer weapon on Denova Prime, she said, pointing to the red marker. If completed, this weapon could destroy entire worlds with a single shot. The room fell silent. After 3 centuries of war, neither side had used weapons of mass destruction. It was an unspoken line neither had crossed. Until now. We've attempted 3 conventional assaults on the facility, continued Admiral Nari. All failed with catastrophic casualties. The facility is protected by layered defenses that our traditional tactics cannot penetrate. Commander Tae-ho Kim studied the holographic display. Denova Prime was a harsh planet, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and unpredictable magnetic storms. The Vraxian facility was built into a mountain with only one apparent entrance. This is a suicide mission, Admiral Nari stated flatly. But we must try again. If that weapon becomes operational, billions will die. Captain Yoonji Park stepped forward. In the year since she had started training mixed-species units, her reputation had grown. Some called her a military genius. Others whispered she was too extreme. "My team will take this mission," she said confidently. Several Alliance officers exchanged concerned glances. Yoonji's methods had proven effective, but many found them disturbing. "Captain Park," said General Suni, her mandibles clicking nervously, "even your unconventional tactics may not be sufficient. The facility has defenses specifically designed to counter human strategies." Yoonji smiled slightly. "Then we'll create new strategies. Suicide is what you'd face without us." After hours of debate, High Command approved the mission. Commander Tae-ho was assigned as an observer, officially to report on the operation, unofficially to ensure the humans didn't go too far. 3 days later, Yoonji's team arrived at Denova Prime aboard a stealth transport. The team consisted of 20 soldiers, 12 humans and 8 aliens who had embraced human combat philosophy. They gathered in the ship's hold, checking specialized equipment. "The conventional approach would be to attack the main entrance," Yoonji explained, pointing to a terrain map. "That's what they expect. We won't do that." Instead, she outlined a plan so unorthodox that even Tai-ho was shocked. They would use the planet itself as a weapon. The team would trigger the planet's natural instabilities to create distractions, while a small infiltration group entered through maintenance tunnels. As they prepared to land, Tai-ho approached Yoonji privately. "Some of these tactics, they cross lines," he said quietly. Yoonji looked at him steadily. "War crossed the line when the Vraxians decided to build a planet killer. Now we just make sure they can't use it. What happened on Denova Prime would haunt Tae-ho forever." The mission began with the team releasing engineered microbes into the planet's atmosphere. Organisms that rapidly consumed certain metals used in Vraxian technology. As alarms sounded throughout the facility, the infiltration team entered through waste disposal channels. Inside, they deployed tactics that shocked even their alien teammates. They used sound weapons calibrated to the exact frequency that caused Vraxian brain tissue to hemorrhage. They released chemicals that mimicked Vraxian, pheromone signals causing guards to attack each other. Most disturbing was their manipulation of the facility's safety systems, turning life support, fire suppression, and radiation shielding against the very people they were designed to protect. Tae-ho watched from the command ship, monitoring body cameras worn by team members. He saw Vraxian scientists begging for mercy, explaining they were civilians forced to work on the weapon. He saw human soldiers ignoring these pleas, methodically eliminating everyone in the facility. "Captain, these aren't combatants," Tae-ho said over the comlink. "They're building a weapon to kill billions," Yoonji replied coldly. "There are no innocent hands on that project." When they reached the central laboratory, Yoonji's team didn't just destroy the weapon. They reprogrammed it to overload, using the Vraxians' own creation against them. The resulting explosion not only destroyed the facility, but created a chain reaction that fractured the planet's unstable crust. As their ship departed, Tejo watched in horror as massive cracks spread across Denova Prime's surface. The planet wouldn't be destroyed completely, but large sections had become uninhabitable. "You didn't just destroy the facility," he said to Yunji as they entered hyperspace. "You poisoned half a planet." "The mission was to ensure the weapon could never be rebuilt," she replied. "Now that entire region is too unstable for construction, the mission was classified as a success. The planet-killer weapon had been destroyed with minimal Alliance casualties. But when body camera footage leaked to civilian networks, public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On the Galactic Council, representatives watched the footage in stunned silence. A Neorian philosopher named Ilara, known for her ethical writings, addressed the council after the viewing. "Is victory worth becoming monsters?" she asked, her voice trembling. "For 3 centuries, this war has had rules, boundaries neither side would cross. The humans have shown us how to win by abandoning those boundaries. But what remains of our civilization when the war ends, if this is how we choose to fight?" Commander Tejo was called to testify before the council. When asked about human military methods, he chose his words carefully. "Humans don't see boundaries the same way we do," he explained. "When facing extinction, they will do whatever it takes to survive, and they assume we would do the same." "Would they truly do anything?" asked Councillor Ilara. Tejo remembered the dead scientists, the poisoned planet. "Yes," he said quietly. "I believe they would." 3 cycles after the Denova Prime incident, the Vraxian Dominion sent a message that shocked the Alliance. After centuries of war, they wanted peace talks. The message arrived at Alliance headquarters during a regular council meeting. The room went silent as Admiral Nari read it aloud. "Why now?" asked General Suni, her mandibles clicking with suspicion. "They were winning until the humans joined us." "That's exactly why," said Tejo Kim, who had been promoted to senior commander after his reports on human warfare. "They fear what happens if we deploy more human tactics." The peace conference was set for Centauri Prime, a neutral planet known for its beautiful crystal cities. For 6 weeks, representatives from both sides argued over borders, reparations, prisoner exchanges, and weapons limitations. Most issues were resolved through compromise, but the Vraxians had one demand they refused to negotiate. "Humans must be permanently barred from military service in Alliance forces," stated Supreme Commander Thrak, leader of the Vraxian delegation. The tall reptilian being stood firm, all 4 of his arms crossed in determination. "This is our final condition. Without it, we continue the war." The Alliance negotiators were divided. Some saw the demand as reasonable after what happened on Denova Prime. Others felt it dishonored the humans who had helped turn the tide of war. The debate lasted for days. Captain Yunji Park was called to address the conference. She entered the Grand Peace Hall wearing her formal Alliance uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. Commander Tejo watched from his seat among the Alliance delegation, wondering what she would say. "The Vraxians claim they fear human brutality," Yunji began, her voice calm. "Yet they were developing a planet-killer weapon. They claim human tactics lack honor, yet they targeted civilian colonies." She looked directly at the Vraxian delegates. "The truth is simpler. You fear us because we found ways to defeat you when no one else could." The Vraxian Supreme Commander's scales darkened with anger, but he didn't deny her words. That evening, Unji and Taiho walked through the crystal gardens outside the Peace Hall. The setting suns cast rainbow patterns through the crystal structures. "They'll accept the Vraxian demand," Taiho said quietly. "The Council is tired of war." Unji nodded. "I know, and perhaps it's for the best." "You surprise me," Taiho admitted. "I expected you to fight this." She stopped walking and faced him. "Commander, I've seen what we're capable of. What I'm capable of. On Denova Prime, I crossed lines I never thought I would. If the price of peace is keeping humans away from galactic conflicts, maybe that protects both sides." 2 days later, representatives gathered in the Peace Hall to sign the Galactic Peace Accord. Captain Yunji and Commander Tejo stood at attention as the chief negotiator read the final document. Article 7, Section 3, the negotiator's voice echoed in the hall. "No human shall serve in combat roles in any future galactic conflict. Earth will receive full Alliance membership, and technological advancement rights, but human military expertise will remain on Earth alone. When the signing was complete, celebrations erupted across Alliance worlds. After 3 centuries of constant war, peace had finally arrived. On Earth, reactions were mixed. Some felt insulted by the restriction, while others were relieved their children wouldn't be sent to fight alien wars. As part of the peace agreement, an exchange program was established. Alliance representatives would live on Earth, and humans would serve in non-military roles throughout Alliance space. Commander Tai-Ho volunteered to become the first diplomatic ambassador to Earth. 10 years passed. The galaxy enjoyed a peaceful transition as former enemies became trading partners. Tai-Ho lived in a small house near Seoul, where he helped coordinate technology exchanges between Earth and the Alliance. He had come to love Earth's natural beauty and cultural diversity. One spring day, he visited a local school to speak about Alliance species and cultures. After his presentation, a young boy approached him with a serious expression. "Sir," the boy asked, "why aren't humans allowed to join the Space Navy? My uncle was a soldier, and he says we're really good at fighting." Tai-Ho smiled gently and knelt to meet the child's eyes. "Your species doesn't just fight wars," he explained. "You transform them. The galaxy wasn't ready for that transformation." The boy frowned, trying to understand. "So we're too good at fighting?" "No," Tai-Ho replied, remembering the horrors of De Nova Prime, but also the courage and ingenuity humans had shown. "You're too willing to become what you fight against to achieve victory, and that terrifies the galaxy more than any weapon ever could." The child nodded solemnly but then brightened. Then, "My teacher says we're using our creativity for science now. I'm going to design ships that can travel faster than light." Tai-Ho smiled genuinely this time. "That's exactly what the galaxy needs from humans, not your talent for war, but your ability to imagine new possibilities." Later that evening, Tai-Ho sat on his porch watching the sunset. His communication device chimed with an incoming message from Alliance headquarters. New tensions were rising with a previously unknown species at the edge of explored space. The message ended with a question that made him pause. Would humans be needed again? He thought about the school children with their dreams of exploration, not conquest. He thought about the lessons learned and the lines crossed. Then he composed his response. "Let us remember why Article 7 exists before we consider breaking it. Some weapons, once used, change everyone who wields them." The end.